Welcome to a special edition of Next Level Travel PH, where today, actually, we're not going to be doing anything with dill, which I use for my pickles, or basil, which I use for my pizza sauce, but we're actually going to be discussing two very different ways people travel in the Philippines. The first way being a travel tour or people who plan your whole vacation. And the second is kind of doing it yourself, the do it yourself method, where you make all the arrangements from your own research and your own study. So today we're going to be discussing the pros and cons of each, as well as go through some of the common errors and create some of our solutions to turn your trip into a dream vacation and not a living nightmare. So let's get started. So the first option we're going to be discussing are travel tours. Travel tours, it's pretty much a company that provides all the services travel related, including your tour packages, accommodations, transportation, sometimes tickets to events, or maybe guided excursions, all for a set price. So first, the pros of a travel tour. Now, the number one reason why people book travel tours, obviously, is convenience. Booking your activities is very time consuming, and time organization is streamlined. You can save your time and energy. All the information that they have is very up to date because pretty much that's all that they do is plan these travel tours. So they know what's open and closed and available. It's also another advantage, another pro, is you can meet a lot of different people within your group. So you already have one thing in common, you're both on a tour. So especially if you're a solo traveler, to join a travel tour and kind of be in a very small environment with many people may be a benefit. Another big advantage of booking a travel tour is the safety involved. So first of all, you don't get lost when you join a travel tour because pretty much they take you everywhere and they know the neighborhood. Also, staying out of bad areas, being in a large group, and having locals present makes it possible to avoid like fraud, and it makes crime less likely. And travel tours have a reputation to uphold. So the best way is for their customers not only to have an amazing time, but to avoid negative experiences. And yet another advantage of booking with a travel tour is the possible cost savings. So sometimes booking as a larger group lowers costs, and some locations have kind of group discounts that if you join with a travel tour you can take advantage of. Also, taking a taxi around all day, if you're taking public transportation, will be much more expensive than having a van or a bus carrying anywhere from 10 to 30 people. A personal example is when we go island hopping, or let's say we went to the subterranean river, the boats that we have to rent hold 8 to 12 people. So it's about maybe 1,000 to 3,000 pesos, anywhere from $20 to $60. Now we would have to pay that ourselves if we booked it ourselves, but with a group tour, you only have to pay your portion of the boat. So we would pay more like 200 to 500 pesos and save a lot of money. There are, although, many disadvantages when vacationing using a travel tour. I'd say the biggest disadvantage is flexibility. You have a set schedule, you leave and are picked up at a certain time, you stay at all of the activities for a certain time, and you go to set destinations throughout the day. And not everyone is an early riser. If the tour leaves at 6 a.m., a lot of people, that's a bit too early. That means you have to wake up at like 4:35. A lot of the itinerary also is a bit generic, so it's not really tailored to you, but it's tailored to what most people would like. So you may end up visiting places that you're just not interested in. Maybe out of 5 places, there's only really 3 that you're really interested in going. The 2 are just kind of part of the tour, so you just you deal with it. Everyone has different tastes, and everyone thinks different things are interesting or fun. And you may have to leave earlier at a specific location than you would have liked, or you may have to stay a little more at some place that you're not a big fan of. And really, even though you're in a group, it's not a democracy. So even if most people want to stay a little longer, you kind of just have to follow the set schedule that the tour provides. You can't also set your own pace when you're doing any kind of physical activity. So if you're going on a hike, you're pretty much walking at the average speed and sometimes the slowest speed of the person in your group.
So it could be a little annoying having to wait for people who just kind of take their time or are just slow movers in general. And another big disadvantage for me is personal preferences with travel tours, because it's impossible for them to pay attention to know your personal tastes. I mean, every hotel, every restaurant that you look at the review for online, whether it's Google or any other review site, they have 1-star reviews and they have 5-star reviews. So people have different things that are most important to their stay. Every person has a different perspective on what's beautiful, peaceful, comfortable, and most important to their vacation experience. The hotel's location, proximity to the water and the view, the availability of the pool, they all have drastically different levels of importance to everyone. For example, in Candelaria, Zambales, I chose a hotel Sunbloom. It had a very quiet setting, while a hotel a couple doors down had karaoke blaring until 1 in the morning. So while that's good for some people, for me, I was glad to stay somewhere a little more serene. So in many hotels in the Philippines, they don't allow you to bring any food on premises, which adds to their cleanliness and their bug-free environment, which is a positive, but the negative is that you have to spend a lot more on food. You have to eat out every meal, or you eat at the hotel's restaurant, which can balloon your food costs. So if you're budget friendly, maybe you would go with a hotel that allowed you to offer food, and if you desired like no bugs in your room at all, the best way to do that is choose a hotel that doesn't allow any outside food. Many times also travel tours stop at specific restaurants in areas that don't have food that appeals to your taste. So when you're in a larger group, you're going to the next town, for example, would be impossible. Even though it has a restaurant, let's say you saw online and you really wanted to try, you really can't do that because you're with a large group. So yet another disadvantage of using a travel tour for your vacation is your lack of privacy. So obviously when you're packed in a van, in a boat, or in a large crowd, your personal space, quiet time, a private conversation, or intimacy with your partner is difficult to impossible. And many times the entire vibe of a specific location is changed with a group mentality. In addition, you don't choose who's in your group. So if your group is made up of, let's say, people who are annoying, complaining, maybe they're loud, smelly, unruly, it can really take away from an otherwise positive, peaceful, relaxing experience. Tourists are also not always honest, and you could be sitting next to a kleptomaniac in a very tight space. So always watch your belongings, even if you're in a large group. Another con that I wanted to discuss was the conflict of interest. So there could be a conflict of interest with a travel tour because many receive kickbacks for taking their customers to certain locations or certain restaurants or hotels. And they may not be the best places to go, but they receive the largest kickbacks from these locations. And they may even be owned by their friends. For example, when I went to Malaysia, I actually booked a travel tour, and some of the restaurants we went to really, I don't think they really were the best. A lot of them had very long wait times, and the food that I got outside of kind of the travel tour environment were much better than the ones that they recommended. So they were a little suspect. So there could be different reasons why they have you go to a certain place besides them being your best option. Now, the last possible disadvantage was also one of the advantages, which is the cost. So you can get a group discount, but you also have to consider that the cost could be increased based upon you're using a company, and they have to make a profit. They have a support staff that has to get paid. They have owners that have to get paid, and the value provided isn't always worth the additional cost. You may have to pay also entrance fees for locations that you wouldn't normally have gone to if you were to book your own itinerary. So even if it was free, you wouldn't have gone, but now you have to pay for something that you didn't want to do in the first place. So the second approach, which is completely different, is the DIY or do-it-yourself approach. And this is where a traveler plans and executes all of the travel-related arrangements. This is what we've done on our vlog. Every hotel, flight, activity, and restaurant we chose and planned and booked ourselves. So we have a lot of experience with this category. So the biggest advantage to or pro to do it yourself is the flexibility and control that you have. You have a great amount of self-determination and you could really choose your own path. You could customize your trip to your own preferences. And one of the ways you can do that, obviously, is choosing your own hotel. You could weigh what's most important to you, whether the beach access or the hotel room view, the importance of having a pool or the amenities available. When you bring your own transportation or you rent transportation, you take public transportation at your location, the level of freedom gained is amazing. The ability to ride wherever and whenever you choose is incredible. And it's a very big value to myself personally. You don't have to worry about missing a bus, missing a van, and your ability to stay a little longer at a certain activity or leave early is very easy when you can just drive off or just hang out for as long as you like because your car or scooter is waiting for you. You could also change your plans on a whim due to, let's say, weather or your level of energy, and you could take advantage of unexpected opportunities. Like if there's a beautiful view on the side of the road, you could stop and take some pictures and hang out for a little bit just because the sunset is just unbelievably gorgeous, for example. There's also those occasions where you have spontaneous decisions based on information gained in real time that could provide very memorable experiences. Like you meet somebody and they're like, how about down the road there's a beautiful farm you could travel to, or a great, let's say, jetty that you could walk on, and you could be in the middle, it could seem like you're in the middle of the ocean. And with a travel tour, you're just not able to make those spur-of-the-moment decisions. Also, with unexpected personal issues that you may have. For example, when my wife got a little sick when we went on one of the boating rides, we actually headed back. It took maybe an extra half an hour off of our trip, but she was able to take Dramamine. In the Philippines, it's Bonamine, to help her seasickness, and she was able to have a really good time during the day. Whereas if she wasn't able to kind of turn around and take the medicine she needed, it would have not been nearly as fun and probably would have been more of a torturous experience. So another big advantage of planning and executing your own vacation is that of the personal growth that you'll feel from doing so. It's a great feeling of self-sufficiency and accomplishment, and challenges are fun, and practicing being an independent thinker is a rewarding activity. Doing your own research, deciding on a plan of action, and practicing your critical thinking, making educated decisions are very important in life as well as on your vacation. Solving problems, overcoming obstacles are all good life lessons and also learn skills. Practice never makes someone perfect, but always makes someone better. That's one thing I've said throughout my life. So another benefit of planning your own vacation is the opportunity to have more of an immersive experience. You're able to go off the beaten path and explore hidden gems a lot more than if you went on a travel tour. One of my favorite aspects of travel is you're meeting new people, especially the people the locals who live in the area, or in many cases the expats who have lived in the area for years. Before I go on any trip, I actually go on Facebook to try to connect with some of the people from the area. When I went to Palawan, I went on a kind of a Palawan fishing group on Facebook, and I met a gentleman. I'm just going to give him a quick shout out, Mr. John Aris, and he helped me he was actually in another part of Palawan, but he helped me find someone else who is a local captain, Kuya Albert, and I ended up going on his fishing boat, and it was documented in my Palawan vlog. I had one of the best times with one of the nicest people I've ever met. So those kind of experiences wouldn't be possible if you just booked with a tour group. Even in the destination themselves, when I traveled to Pundaket, I stopped at CMC on a whim. It had a good review. Me and my wife watched a little UFC on Sunday morning, which was live from Saturday night, which is a 12-hour difference in New York. We met a gentleman an expat from Florida, Kuya Dan, and we didn't even book a hotel in this location, so we were just going to take a look at a couple different properties, and he gave us kind of like a low, mid, and high end hotel to look at, and we ended up going with the mid priced, and it was perfect. It was the perfect combination of serene and clean, and it was just it was a oceanfront property, and it was just beautiful. It worked out really well, and just by meeting the local people, we were able to kind of get the insider, unbiased view from people who live there. It was perfect. So the final advantage of booking your own vacation is financial, meaning there are cost savings that you'll be able to accomplish, and also control about where you spend your money. You could have a $20 or 1,000 peso dinner, or you could go to kind of a roadside stand and spend 250 pesos or $5, and it's pretty much your choice on where you want to go. You could get a larger hotel room, or a hotel room with a great view, and if you want to spend your money in that way, you can do so if it's of great importance to you. When you book online, when you look at different places, you can go to, let's say, Trivago, Google, Agoda, and compare the different properties and the different prices, and many times the same property will be different prices depending on which website you visit. With air transportation, if you know you're going on vacation early, you'll be able to save. If you book maybe like about a month in advance, the prices are much cheaper than if you book like a week in advance. Also, for scooters, you could either compare online, or if you do a little bit of legwork and you go to a couple of different shops and compare prices, you could save a ton of money. So I went over a lot of the benefits of planning your own vacation, but there are also a ton of disadvantages. And alongside the rewards of being independent, there are inherent risks. The responsibility for your itinerary and day-to-day actions fall 100% on you and your travel partners. You can hold no one else accountable except yourself if you don't have a vacation that lives up to your expectations or turns into a complete disaster. So as your own booking agent, you have complete accountability for booking your own flights. You don't want to make any mistakes, and you want to triple check all the information before you log it in on the computer. My first trip to Boracay, I will admit, I made a little typo, and I ended up not having a plane ticket on the day that I wanted, and had to buy another one on spot, which was actually much more expensive. Also, when you're booking flights on travel websites like Expedia, Kayak, Skyscanner, your itinerary should be double checked. You should actually look at the actual airline's website to make sure that you're going where they say you're going. I had one of the most stressful events happen to me during my flight, and my whole family. We had about 10 people traveling from the Philippines to New York, and we were stopping off in Tokyo. Now, there are two airports in Tokyo, and what was listed, we were going to Haneda Airport, and then we were leaving from Haneda Airport. But it turned out the flight was leaving from Narita Airport. So we had to get visas, do about a 3-hour trip across Tokyo, and we made the flight by about 15 minutes. So in other words, always check your flight with the actual airline when you book through a third party. Also, you're going to be booking your own hotel, which is going to be done online. Now, all hotels, as you probably have seen, have ratings anywhere from 1 star to 5 stars. And also the pictures of the property can be misleading or outdated, and the reviews are subjective at best and biased at worst. What I usually do is I usually arrange the reviews from newest to oldest, because the accommodations themselves and management can change over time for better or worse. So when looking at the pictures of hotels or beaches online, the current technology allows properties to seriously filter a picture to change the color of the sand, the water, or give an angle that can mislead one's impression. And one of the videos that are around, very popular, are the expectations versus reality. And a lot of times the pictures and the reality are just two different worlds. Really the reliability of pictures have decreased dramatically in the last 10 years. If you're traveling during peak season or during a festival or event, you may have limited choices. So if you decide that, well, I'm gonna visit a couple of locations and book something on spot, you may have very limited choices. If it's already very crowded, you may be closed out of a lot of locations. You may be forced to be at a location that's not your first choice or is very far away from the event you're attending. So when you're booking your own activities, you have to understand that many of the websites in the Philippines aren't all up to date. So there could be recent changes or closures that may seriously hinder your plans. I had that experience in Patipat Island when I went to Candelaria, Zambales. When I finally went up there, even though it was actually recommended by someone local, it ended up being Patipat Island was closed since COVID. So as soon as I got up there, pretty much the one island that I wanted to visit while I was in Candelaria was unavailable. We traveled around the island in a boat, but it was completely buoyed off. There's another issue. Sometimes the tickets for a certain event, like the subterranean river, the tickets, you have to have a reservation before you go there. So you have to go to this Mendoza building in Puerto Princesa, which is an hour and a half away from the subterranean river. So if you don't get a reservation and you show up and suddenly you can't enjoy the activity you just traveled a long time for, it could be very upsetting. Luckily, the day before, we researched and we made sure that we had the reservation. The next disadvantage is actually, it's more of a warning. Your desired mode of transportation when you're going to a location in the Philippines has to be considered very carefully. Unless you're using public transportation, which can be very limited on many of the on many Philippine islands, you could either rent a motorcycle or a car, and your personal driving skills, as well as the local etiquette, has to be looked at honestly. Driving a car or especially a scooter on a quiet island requires a lot less skill than in Metro Manila or the city of Cebu. Traveling is always a major concern, so drive carefully. There's even a specific slang term given to the reckless drivers in the area, and they're called camote drivers. I've been called a camote driver on a few occasions, and sometimes the people were rightful in doing so. Siargao, for example, has a very lax law, and you could ride around in a scooter shirtless, have sandals on, have like 4 people on your scooter, and you really won't have a problem. But Subic Bay, which is a former military U.S. naval base on the island of Luzon, they have pretty much Western laws, and you have to stop completely at all the intersections, and if you don't wear closed-toed shoes, you will get a ticket. I've gotten a ticket actually in Metro Manila. My wife had open-toed shoes, and luckily we settled the fine out of court. But you just have to know all of the local policies, as well as just be really careful when you're driving in unfamiliar locations. So another disadvantage you may have when not traveling in a group is the issue of socialization that you may encounter on your travels, especially if you are a solo traveler. If you're shy, introverted, it may prove a challenge to meet new people. The Philippines usually has a very friendly, overall warm culture, and most people aren't going to have an issue meeting a lot of really wonderful new people. But you have to be able to put yourself out there, and you have to have the desire to use your social skills. There's always language barriers that you may encounter. There are many dialects in the Philippines. My wife speaks Tagalog, Bisaya, Chebacano, and Ilonggo. I speak none of the above fluently, but Chebacano is actually closest to Spanish, which is my most fluent language. Although you may have some English speakers in the city predominantly, when you go to some provinces, most people may speak their local dialect predominantly. So, miscommunications and etiquette infractions are always a possibility. For example, one of the things that is very common, a common saying in the Philippines, is for a while. Now, they may mean just a few moments, but in the United States, when someone says for a while, it means it's going to be a long while. So it could be a little miscommunication there. Also, in terms of directions or communication using facial gestures, It's just very common in the Philippines. So if you ask where something is, someone may go, like it's that way. But it's not, meant as a term of disrespect. It's just the way they communicate. Also, instead of a yes, they may give you the. It's not a. They're not having a facial seizure. It's just their way, non-verbally of saying yes. Do you think that's a good idea? Okay, and that just means yes, just so you know. So communication may be an issue, but you do have the ability to figure it out as you go along. The last possible disadvantage that you can have from booking your own vacation and going it alone is you're responsible for 100% of your safety and security. You have to be extra vigilant that people that you meet on your travels are upstanding and honest, and you really have to use your own street smarts and gut instincts in order to make quick, accurate decisions. I would say beware of people who aren't affiliated with the tourist attractions and they're offering like a special deal or a special experience. If anything is offered for free or maybe pay whatever you feel most comfortable with, that's a very big red flag. It's always better to agree on a price that all parties feel comfortable with beforehand. Taxi scams are commonplace in the Philippines, and I would always use metered taxis or Grab or Joyride. I actually enjoy researching some of the scams at the tourist locations just to be extra prepared. With all these warnings being stated, I felt very safe overall in the Philippines in my 5 years of being here. Now, I think a fair takeaway from this video is that there is no option that is best for all people. On one hand, travelers that don't have the time or lack interest in researching before their journey would prefer tour groups. While some people consider planning fun and exciting, others consider it stressful. The all-inclusive vacations, they're very popular for good reason. With all the decisions and responsibilities people have in their everyday lives, they want to absolve themselves of any during their vacation. Relaxation or avoiding anxiety are obviously the most important objectives for people that choose either tour groups or the all-inclusive vacation. In contrast, the more adventurous travelers often prefer to customize their vacations and truly enjoy the research and planning necessary to do so. Although there is a greater risk and additional efforts are necessary, the benefits of freedom, control, and spontaneity outweigh the thought of going on kind of a cookie-cutter, one-size-fits-all journey. Now, there is another alternative to travel tours or planning everything yourself, and that is a personal vacation consultant. For those who are most conscious of their time and still want a customized experience, I would sincerely recommend hiring a seasoned expert when traveling to the Philippines. Disney World in Florida is famous for consultants who create magical experiences where there are endless choices and preparations required. So the process would consist of an initial consultation where the specialist would first listen to your personal expectations, preferences, and discuss what activities most appeal to your specific personality and desires. There are endless themes that are customizable in the Philippines, from ocean fishing and scuba adventures, where coral reefs and white sand beaches would be the main focal point, to a religious or historical journey where churches and archaeological sites would be the main attraction. The consultant would then make a written proposal, and upon approval, would make all of the preparations for your trip. That would be your most perfect match, your once-in-a-lifetime dream vacation. Booking the accommodation, personally selected drivers, reputable local tour guides, and that would be supplied to a busy yet discerning traveler. So the mission of a personal travel consultant would be to optimize your time and enjoyment. Many people have but one opportunity to visit a bucket list location, and I would recommend this option as the best of both the do-it-yourself and travel tour options. If you would like to speak further about a vacation you are planning to the Philippines, a country with 7,000 islands that we've been traversing for the greater part of a decade, you're more than welcome to contact us and inquire about the creation of your dream vacation on one or many of the paradisal locations that make the Philippines so special and unique. If you have any further suggestions or a personal experience on traveling in the Philippines, you're more than welcome to comment below. Or if you know a frequent traveler who you believe would benefit from this video, please share it with them. We would appreciate it and believe they will also. This is Justin and Karen with Next Level Travel, encouraging you to live and travel well during this lifetime and have the perspective that heaven can wait. Take care and thanks.